I think it's time we tell them another dog breeding horror story.
Yeah, we could tell them about the time there was those puppies that their skin got hard, nasty, and burnt, and essentially the whole tragic situation that happened with that. Yeah, I'll tell them that story. What's going on, Bully fam? It's your boy, the educator, the scientist, Mr. Double Muscle Line Bulls, bringing you another episode of Breeders' Hacks. Puppies that have hard skin, the skin looks like it's peeling, it looks burnt. We'll talk a little bit about that today in today's episode because dog breeding horror stories. This is a segment that we used to do, haven't done one in a while, so figured, hey, let's bring it back. Dog breeding doesn't always go as planned. Sometimes you run into some bumps and bruises, and I'm gonna cover that kind of horror story that took place with us. Have a little bit of time. We were just doing an ultrasound on Cookie, and now we're waiting for the results on the pregnancy test, the Belly Labs pregnancy test. So I figured, hey, we got about 10 to 15 minutes. Let's go ahead and kill some time, and I'll share a story, a dog breeding horror story with you guys, right? So the puppies with the hard skin. So we had a co-own, and sometimes this is why co-owns don't always go so well, is we had a co-own with this particular breeder, and he was newer. He wanted to whelp the litter himself, and I said, hey, you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. Whelping the litter yourself will get you a lot of hands-on experience rather than going to a whelper or rather me whelping it or whatever the case may be. This was years ago. So what winded up happening was, everything went smoothly. We bred the dog. She got pregnant. She had the puppies. Everything was good. He had his whelping box and everything set up. Well, what winded up happening was the puppies, when they were born, when they were only maybe, what do you think, like a week old, something like that? What happens is, depending on the substrate that you have, and it's unfortunate that I even have to really kind of go over this, but I've seen this situation happen time and time again in my DMs with puppies with the same exact thing. So what had happened was they were almost like those wrestling mats, like those mats that you would put in your garage or something like that. They weren't absorbent. So what had happened was one day he calls me and he's like, hey, these puppies don't look too good. These puppies, their skin looks like it's peeling. It feels hard. And the puppies essentially, it looks like they've been burned. Well, I said, do you have a heat lamp? Do you have a heat controller? And he said yes to all those things. What I didn't realize had happened was I said, all right, I'll be right over there. When I got there, he had those mats. And because he didn't have any blankets or anything on top of those mats, what winded up happening was the puppies, when they pee and when they urinate, and when they poop, being on that kind of mat surface, so it's a mat like this, when the puppy's moving along that mat, it'll urinate because that mat is a little bit more abrasive, so it was causing the puppy to urinate. He was trying to use those mats to give the puppies traction so that they could move and that they would be able to walk a lot sooner. It made sense in those mats and what he was using, but the problem was that they weren't absorbent, and you can't be there every second for when a puppy urinates. So when the puppies are clawing and moving on those mats, what winds up happening is the puppy's genitals are getting stimulated because they're dragging them on that kind of rough surface of the mat. So it's kind of stimulating them to go to the bathroom, especially on the warm side where he had the heat lamp where it was warm. So they were going to the bathroom, and then one might have been following it or whatever the case may be, and the other one walked right into the urine and the feces. So quickly, the puppy's skin, fur, was kind of like absorbing that water. And when you picked up the puppy, you could tell that it was like kind of hard and a little damp at the same time. He needed to have like a blanket or wee-wee pads down or something like that. His thing was, like I said, he wanted to give the puppies tractions, and I understand that, but because there was nothing absorbing the feces, even if you quickly are going in and spot cleaning, they're going all the time, especially when you have a large litter of puppies. You can't physically be catching every single time that they urinate and when they poop. So I know he had good intentions, so it just wasn't the proper setup to set him up for success. That's really what it came down to. He had good intentions, but yet again, it just wasn't the proper setup. So the puppies were crawling and they're getting urine and poop on their fur, even though he may be very well be trying to clean it up very quickly or whatever the case may be. After you clean the puppies and make them go to the bathroom, sometimes they will go again later on. So that was what was happening. But what made it even worse was the fact that he had a heat lamp going. So obviously they do need heat, but because they're getting, you know, urine and feces all over on their fur and it's absorbing it, now when they're under the heat lamp, it's getting cooked on them and their skin was getting cooked. The urine was drying and hardening on their skin. It looked crazy. If I could find a picture, I'll put it somewhere. So the skin was getting cooked. The urine, the feces was cooking on their skin. So it just was a bad setup. So the people who use those mats, I always tell them to be careful. Make sure they have, like, you know, blankets and wee-wee pads and things like that. And he wasn't the only one that made that mistake. I've seen it with plenty of breeders that have contacted me on Instagram, Facebook, showing me their puppies, saying, you know, why does the puppy look like this? And then they show me their setup, and usually that's the culprit. So yes, you aren't supposed to really like bathe the puppies until they're like 4 weeks old. When they're about 4 weeks old, then we use it's a puppy tearless shampoo that's safe, that if it gets into their eyes, doesn't burn them, things like that. It's gentle on their skin. And like I said, yeah, just cleanliness. If you keep your puppies clean, you will keep your problems away. But prior to 4 weeks old, we'll use like baby wipes, you know, or like water with a cloth, things like that, to still keep the puppies clean. I think the issue was that he had heard, well, you know, under 4 weeks, you're not supposed to bathe the puppies. And the mom was cleaning them, but not enough, because of the fact that right when she was done cleaning them, he put them down on the floor, they'd move, and they'd stimulate themselves to pee and poo a little bit more. And next thing you know, the puppies are moving in their own filth. And because there's a heat lamp on top of them, it's cooking the urine on them, and it burned the skin. And when I got there, when I saw it, I knew exactly what had happened. So I was pretty upset. So what we ended up doing is we took the puppies and we brought them over here, and we whelped the litter for the rest of the term, you know, got them back to where they needed to be. But the skin was really, really bad. And what I could tell you is, like, when the skin gets that bad, what you'll need to do is keep putting Aquaphor on the puppies. Or Aquaphor is probably the biggest thing that helped those puppies, in my opinion. And we were able to kind of turn it around on them. But if he would have left it any longer for any further an amount, I mean, I've seen puppies where they wind up getting skin infections, puppies that they wind up, you know, having permanent issues, possibly dying because of something so simple that got overlooked. And it took weeks, because remember, like, the puppy's going through so many different developmental stages, where it's trying to heal its skin at the same time it's growing, and its body's doing so many other things at the same time. So thank you for being so patient, mama. So that's really what that comes from. So if you ever see it, at least you know what it is. And I mean, it was a horror story, because if you would have seen what these puppies looked like, I felt so bad for them. And because they had that, I had to give them extra care. I kept them on, I gave them IV bags, sub-Q fluids under the skin, things like that. The real thing is just keeping that skin hydrated with the Aquaphor, keeping them clean, using baby wipes. And then, hey, even if the puppies are a little bit older, like I said, if they're around like 4 weeks old or closer to 4 weeks old, I'll use like a puppy tearless shampoo that's designed for, you know, young puppies and things like that. And that'll be really helpful to the puppies. So I just wanted to share that experience with you guys. How much time we got left on the timer? Time's just about up. So sometimes dog breeding doesn't always go as planned. Sometimes you run into hiccups. Sometimes you run into issues. And like I said, that was one of them. And well, you guys can take his lesson and learn from it. So yet again, guys, anything under 4 weeks, you still need to clean those puppies. Use some wet wipes, have some rags, things like that. Once they hit that 4 week mark, then you could go ahead and use like a puppy tearless shampoo like what we use and things like that. And that'll help so much more once they get to that age. But just staying on top of them, keeping puppies clean. If you haven't learned anything from this episode, that's the key. Keeping them clean. You keep puppies clean, it keeps problems away. You don't keep them clean, that's when the big problems come around. And I mean, honestly, luckily, I was in the situation to help. Otherwise, the puppies would have either been dead or the vet would have paid. He would have paid a lot of money to the vet. And then yet again, I don't know if they would have put in that kind of time. It would have been very expensive. So hopefully it's not a complete loss, but it's a lesson for you guys. Hopefully we'll see you guys in the next episode of Breeders' Hacks. All right, guys.